My name is Ashley Ella Jones, and this is a mock recording for Dr. Drew's class, RSED 7236, going over an FBA within a meeting. Okay, so thank you guys for joining the meeting today. I just wanted to go over our introductions. My name is Mrs. Jones. I'm the collaborative teacher. We have Ms. Anderson, who will be taking meeting minutes. And then we have Mrs. Rambis, who would be our local education agency official. And then we have Mom, Tiger's mom, so thank you for joining. Now, the reason for this meeting is that we're going to conduct a re-eval for changes to IEP. We want to do that in order to review functional behavioral assessment that was completed from a previous meeting. We had discussed behavioral concerns that impede his educational performance in the general education setting. Before we also get started, I wanted to request to see if you want another copy of your parents' rights. Perfect. Okay, so we'll just document here that they were sent on January 14th and mother does not need another copy. Okay, so we had introductions, we had the reason for the meeting, we have our parents' rights. The next form we're going to review is the record of access to student records, and it's just going to be signed stating that we all participated via Zoom or via phone due to COVID. And just to review, the record of access is just a document that we sign at every meeting stating that we're the only ones reviewing and accessing his records. We want to make sure that everything that we discuss stays confidential among the team. So if we will begin, I'm going to pull up our FBA to review all the data and documentation that was conducted. Okay, so one of the first things that was completed by the classroom teacher was the behavior analytic problem solving interview, just the BAPS-I. And that is just a semi-structured interviews to identify and describe student-specific interfering behaviors, and then also the individual and environmental variables that contribute to or evoke or occasion to maintain the interfering behaviors. So we're just going to look at each section of this form. Each section does include questions and prompts to guide the interview and gathering relevant information from the teacher. And from this portion of one assessments that we did, we found that Tiger's personal strength in academics was that he works well in small group and in one-to-one instruction with completing his assignments. And he does have a strength in communication, that when he is calm and speaking with an adult that he trusts, he can verbally communicate his wants, needs, and emotions. When we scroll down to identify and describe the interfering behavior, we look at different interfering behaviors that impedes educational performance. So one of the behaviors was that Tiger refuses to enter the school building and or walk to the classroom to begin his day in the instructional environment. He will often sit outside on the bench. He refuses to walk down the hallway. He sits outside his classroom door. He ignores teacher prompts, refuses to talk to school staff, and he states that his stomach hurts often. The nurse has checked him multiple times throughout the week, and she calls you, Mom, to talk about the stomach pain. And he also does not like when the nurse calls Mom, because whenever she says she's going to call you, he'll say that he gets in trouble because he's always calling or saying that his stomach hurts, and you just tell him he has to stay in school, that he's fine. The response to hierarchy, which is just the order of how everything goes, he does refuse to enter school building. When he is verbally prompted, he does ignore school staff, and then he refuses to walk down the hall when he sits inside the school building. Once he gets outside of his classroom, he does refuse to enter the classroom instructional environment. Looking at the context when the interfering behavior most likely occurs, the description of the context is that it happens in car line and or school hallway when prompted to enter the school building or the classroom for instructional learning and start of the new day. When he is given verbal prompts to head to his classroom to get his breakfast and begin his instructional learning day with his class and teachers, never usually these behaviors start. When we looked at what the trigger may be for the interfering behavior, we looked at non-preferred tasks and activities, just because when he is prompted in the morning to go to the classroom, that's whenever he starts to have the behavior. As soon as he gets out of the car and when he has to go into the school building, he just refuses to go. So that one was checked for non-preferred task activities. When we're looking at who's typically present with the interfering behavior that occurs, the people that are usually there is the current classroom teacher, me, the collaborative teacher, the principal, the assistant principal, and then we have other school staff that usually helps in Carline, like the school counselor or the art teacher or music teacher. In the locations of the behavior is morning Carline, and then in the hallway and outside of his classroom. When we look at the reinforcing consequences, we look at access to social attention, because he does gain attention from the counselor or preferred staff when he does refuse to go with those one-on-one restorative conversations. He also, when prompted to go to the classroom for instructional environment to get breakfast and begin learning, he will sometimes prefer to eat breakfast in my room, in the resource room, which is across the hall from his classroom. And he'll usually come in there, he's first thing, and I'll say, okay, Tiger, first you can come in my room and eat breakfast. And when you're done with breakfast, we're going to go to the classroom and get started on our work. So we marked that as escape from task activities, because he comes into my room instead of having to enter the designated learning environment. And then we're looking at arousal reduction for potential automatic reinforcing consequence. He does verbally state he does not want to go to class or do his assignments. He states that he prefers one-on-one instruction with a collaborative teacher. So through the BAPS, one of the common things that we saw as possible consequences or function is escape and task avoidance, and then also attention, just based on the interview with the teacher. We also took in consideration how you stated that he's previously been admitted to a mental health care facility 3 times within the past year, that information has been relayed, and he does exhibit behaviors that he responds best to one-on-one attention with preferred adult. So we do try to provide him that one-on-one attention, have those conversations with him in the mornings if he does feel like more down or something really is bothering him where he doesn't want to enter the classroom. But the main focus of the FBA that we conducted was based on the behavior of him just not wanting to go to the classroom and do his work. The particular skill deficits that contribute to the interfering behavior, or also what he needs to learn to be more successful, is communication skills. He needs to improve on responding teacher verbal prompts, directives, and then executive skills that he needs to improve on entering the classroom instructional environment independently and follow directives. The classroom teacher and all of us as a team, we've agreed that we want Tiger to enter the classroom instructional environment in the mornings independently with little verbal prompts to eat his breakfast and begin morning work. And then it was also stated that some of the things that were tried to assist him was that he was allowed to eat his breakfast in the resource room with me. And that has shown more of a smoother transition into his homeroom with the use of a timer and using first thing and giving him that one-on-one attention in the morning to talk about whatever he wants to talk about. And then one time I was like, okay, it's time for you to go to class. Now I have to do my work, and I'll let him go over to his classroom. The next part of the assessments that were administered was the functional analysis screening tool. And this was done by another teacher who also works with Tiger. And I'm just going to scroll down to the scoring summary, because basically this assessment, it identifies factors that may influence problem behaviors. It's used only for screening as part of the comprehensive functional analysis of the behavior. So we do give it out to them. We kind of look at it to see, according to different individuals' observations and working with him, what the score summary tells us about the function of the behavior. So the function of the behavior, it can be a social function for attention, it can be for escape, it can be automatic sensory, like through stimulation or sensory stimulation, or it can be automatic pain attentiveness within the scoring summary. Based on the function analysis screening tool that was completed by this teacher, his highest score was 4, and it was in social escape from task and activities. And then the second score was a 3 in social attention preferential items. So that tells us again that a possible function of his behavior is to escape the task within the classroom through not entering the classroom, or it can be attention or preferred items because he wants that one-on-one attention in a smaller setting. We have anecdotal reports, where the observation, there's a bunch of them on here that we can review, but one main one was that it took place during outside of the school day during car duty. It started at 7:53 a.m. It's whenever you dropped him off at school. And the counselor was out there. She opened the door. She said good morning to the family. She tried to help everybody out of the car. And then Tiger had walked and sat on the bench outside of the school. And when he's verbally prompted to go inside the school building, he just ignored verbal prompts and refused. So from 7:53 a.m. all the way until 8:11 a.m., he just sat there. We tried to do verbal prompts, positive reinforcement. We tried first let's get you to your classroom and get you some breakfast, and then Miss Jones can come by and help you. But he still refused. So at 8:11 a.m., he finally stood up and walked towards the front door of the school, and that was the end of the observation. So here we have a graph, a scatter plot for data analysis. Let me just show you. So within our scatter plot analysis, we have level 1 was sitting outside on the school bench, level 2 walking slowly down the hall hugging the wall, and level 3 standing outside the classroom. So we did this in 5 consecutive days. So on day 1, he had 2 prompts for sitting outside on the school bench, 3 for walking slowly down the hall hugging the wall, and 2 for standing outside the classroom. And then on day 2, he had 2 for sitting outside on the school bench, 1 for walking slowly down the hall hugging the wall, and 2 for standing outside the classroom. Day 3, we only had 1 for sitting outside on the school bench, but then we had 3 for walking slowly down the hallway hugging the wall, and then 2 for standing outside the school classroom. Day 4, we had 2 sitting outside on the school bench, 1 walking down the hall hugging the wall, and then 2 sitting outside of the classroom or staying outside the door. And then on day 5, we had 2 for sitting outside on the school bench. We had none for walking slowly down the hall or hugging the wall, so he just walked normally. And then we had 2 for standing outside the classroom. So that was our scatter plot analysis, and that was based on ABC data that was taken. Sorry, I'm trying to fix it so we can continue. There we go. More data sheets. I'm going to hand you some of these data sheets so we can review these together. We have the ABC descriptive data sheet where you have the time duration, the activity context, the antecedent target behavior, the consequence, student reaction, and the perceived function. And then we have comments on that. So throughout the days, we could look to determine specifically what was happening before the behavior, whether if it was getting out of car when he's dropped out of school, if it was eating breakfast or morning work, and then what the antecedent was, either walking into school, walking into the classroom, entering the classroom, or the target behavior, whether if he sat outside on the school bench, if he walked slowly in the hall hugging the wall, or if he stood or sit outside the classroom. And then what were the consequences that were used, whether if it was verbal prompts, the rule is, or physical prompt from security to get him to go in the classroom. And then also the student reaction, whether if he ignored teacher prompts, if he said his stomach hurt, he's hungry, or if he walked away from staff. And then the perceived function. Now this is not determining what the function is, it's just what a probable function was based off what had happened. So it could have been escape from entering the school, escape from entering the classroom, or getting that attention through sitting in a preferred room, which was my classroom and the resource room for one-on-one instruction. So we can review all of these together. And then if we take all of the ABC data and we wanted to determine how much of classroom instruction he was missing, just because we noticed that it is affecting his academic functioning with the general education settings, we looked at the latency data recording sheet and we entered that. So on day 1, he missed 65 minutes. On day 2, he missed 56 minutes. On day 3, 75 minutes. On day 4, 65 minutes. On day 5, 75 minutes. On day 6, 64 minutes. On day 7, 36 minutes. On day 8, 64 minutes. On day 9, 26 minutes. And on day 10, 57 minutes. So he's missing quite a bit of work during the amount of elapsed time before the expected behavior occurred. And when he's missing that much instruction, it does affect his academic functioning. So let me scroll back up. And then we're going to review. Let me get there. Sorry. We have so much data to go through. I apologize. Okay, so we also conducted a functional analysis, and that was where the data exhibits Tiger's responses to the 3 functional scenarios of attention, demand, escape, or control. We wanted to try to see, based off of these scenarios, what the probable function of his behavior was. During the attention session, he would continue to interrupt my work when I would direct him to do his work. He would walk around the classroom refusing to do his work and walking over to my desk where I was working on my computer and ask me questions off topic. Through the scenario of demand escape, Tiger refused to enter the classroom to start his assignment when prompted, and then when the demand was lifted and reintroduced, he would then again state he did not want to go into his classroom to work. He would ask to come to my classroom, the resource room, to do his assignments with me in a one-on-one instructional setting. So based off of those different scenarios, it looks as if he wanted to escape from doing his assignments. However, he did want to do them in a one-to-one setting to gain attention from me to complete them. We do have one more graph for the functional analysis. I was trying to pull that up where it shows attention, control, and demand. And based off the functional analysis, I'll show you the graph. It shows that attention is the probable function of his behavior. Because if you look at the lines in the key, we have attention with diamonds, control with the squares, and demand with the triangles. So based off the functional analysis, we had more time or more of attention seeking behaviors. Okay. Trying to make sure that we covered everything. We did cover the FAST and the BAPS interview, and we covered the anecdotal reports and the direct observations. Okay, so now as a team, after reviewing all this data, we do know that the function of the behavior could possibly be, I'm not saying that it is, but it could possibly be either attention-seeking behavior or it can be escape from his task in the classroom activities. Cohesively as a team, I feel like we all just really want Tiger to report to his classroom so that he's not missing the vital instruction and to complete his assignments throughout the school day. So we are going to work as a team with our school's behavior intervention specialist on developing a behavior intervention plan. And the behavior intervention plan is going to focus on the targeted behaviors of walking down the hall, like entering the school building, because we want him to enter the school building first. Then we want him to walk down the hall, and we want him to enter his classroom to start his work. We will make sure that we provide this data with the behavior specialist to make sure that we provide different interventions and things for him to use. As we do know, he does like eating breakfast in my classroom, so we could possibly tie that in as a reward to where if he has 3 out of 5 days of going in the classroom and doing his work, then he can choose a day where he comes into my room in the mornings and we have that one-on-one, discussion, whatever he wants to talk about. We eat our breakfast together, and then we transition into the gen ed setting to do his work. So let me pull up the meeting minutes that Miss Anderson had sent. Okay, so we did discuss each section of the functional behavioral assessment, we did go over targeted behaviors that impede his educational performance within general education setting. We did discuss that we're going to get our behavior intervention specialist to help us develop a behavior intervention plan that's best beneficial to help him with meeting his educational needs. We are going to amend his current IEP to review and revise, just to put in the other section stating that the team did meet today. We did go over the FBA and that we are working on developing a behavior intervention plan to best meet his educational needs. These are the conference notes, and we are reviewing these. We do have prior options attempted as one-on-one instruction in the resource room, use of timers to transition, verbal prompts, use of first to then, a token economy, and calls to mom when needed. For concerns, we do have that the mother's concerned about the lack of academic progress in the areas of reading and math, and then also behavioral concerns that impede his educational performance. And the recommendations of the team is that the IEP team agreed that the school team should meet together with behavior specialists to develop a behavior intervention plan to best support his educational needs. And then we have all of our signatures stating via phone. So I know that I reviewed a lot and it's a lot to take in. So now we can take this time to go through the papers and we can discuss everything together. We can ask more questions. We can take more notes that we can give the behavior specialist, and then we will be done. Thank you.